The dull thud of each photograph hitting the polished mahogany table echoed in my ears like distant gunshots. My mother-in-law Olivia's sharp intake of breath sliced through the room as Penny's voice dripped with manufactured concern. "Look at these," she said, her fingertips sliding another glossy image forward. I'd noticed her hired investigator following me weeks ago. He wasn't nearly as subtle as he thought. While Vincent has been working himself to exhaustion at the company, she's been running around town with other men. The photographs captured me in various restaurants and cafes, head tilted, occasionally touching an arm, engaged in conversation with different men. Penny stood too close to my husband, her hand possessively gripping his shoulder, while Rachel, the woman he'd been sleeping with for months, sat silently at his other side. Penny's eyes gleamed with triumph as she delivered her final blow. "Now, you don't have to feel guilty about Rachel, and you definitely don't have to give Catherine anything in the divorce. My name is Catherine Walsh, I'm 34 and a marketing executive. This is the story of how I transformed a family's betrayal into the justice they never saw coming. The family I had devoted 9 years to gathered around those photos like vultures circling a carcass in the formal dining room of the Walsh family estate." Olivia lifted one with trembling fingers, her voice breaking with practiced disappointment. "Catherine, how could you? We welcomed you into our family." Once, her words would have cut deep. Now, I observed her performance with clinical detachment. "What do you have to say for yourself?" Penny demanded, one hand propped on her hip, the other dramatically pointing at the evidence spread before everyone. I took a deliberately slow sip of water, my eyes moving methodically across the table. Vincent still wouldn't meet my gaze. His parents looked appropriately devastated, though I noticed his father, Robert, seemed more uncomfortable than angry. Penny stood tall, her posture radiating righteousness. "Nice pictures," I said calmly. "The lighting is excellent. You must have paid your private investigator quite a lot." Penny's triumphant smile faltered. This wasn't the tearful denial she had scripted for this moment. "That's all you have to say?" she snapped. "You're not even going to deny it?" I reached into my purse, feeling everyone tense, waiting for tears or perhaps a desperate confession. Instead, I placed my tablet on the table, its screen dark and reflective against the wood. Why would I deny it? Those men are all divorce lawyers. The silence that followed was absolute. "What?" Penny stuttered, her composure cracking. I pointed to each photo methodically. "That's Jonathan Murray, the best family lawyer in the city. This is Michael Turner. His firm specializes in cases involving infidelity. And this dinner? That's William Parker. He's particularly skilled at handling cases where people try to hide assets before a divorce." Penny's face drained of color. Vincent suddenly found his water glass fascinating. "You see," I continued, "when I discovered Vincent and Rachel 3 months ago in our own bed, I decided to prepare properly." "You're lying," Penny said, but uncertainty had replaced her confidence. I activated my tablet, displaying emails and signed agreements. The wonderful thing about legal consultations is that there's always documentation. I scrolled through the files deliberately. "But that's not even the most interesting part," I added, finally looking directly at Vincent. "What do you mean?" Olivia's voice trembled. "Well," I said, "during one of these meetings, I learned something fascinating about recent property transfers in this family. My banker friend had noticed unusual activity in our joint accounts and quietly alerted me. Lots of money and houses changing hands, new companies being formed." I let the implications settle over the room. Robert shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Vincent frowned, turning to his father. "Dad, is that why you had me sign those papers last month? You said it was just routine family business." I watched realization dawn on his face. His family wasn't just helping him cheat. They were systematically hiding assets before the divorce. "Vincent, sweetheart, we were just protecting you," Olivia began. "Actually," I cut her off, "you were committing fraud." I smiled thinly. "And my lawyers have documented everything." Penny collapsed into a chair, the architect of her perfect trap suddenly finding herself snared. "You knew," she whispered. "You knew this whole time." I nodded, gathering my belongings. "Next time you hire a private investigator, make sure they're not working for both sides." I stood, smoothing my dress. "Oh, and Vincent, your lawyer will receive the paperwork tomorrow. You might want to read it carefully, especially the part about fraud." At the door, I turned back to Penny. Thanks for the photos. They'll make excellent evidence. My heels struck the marble floor like a metronome as I walked out of the Walsh mansion. Only when I reached my car in the circular driveway did I finally allow myself a small, private smile. They thought they had trapped me, but they had no idea what was coming. When I arrived home that evening, I knew the real battle was just beginning. The next few days unleashed chaos. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from Vincent's family. Threats mingled with tearful pleas. Penny cycled between rage and panic, her texts growing increasingly desperate. "You can't do this to us. We are family," her latest message read. That word, family, lingered in my mind. They hadn't treated me like family when they were planning to leave me with nothing. I archived her message without responding and focused on my preparations. Jonathan Murray's law office projected exactly the power it intended: gleaming wood, supple leather chairs, and an atmosphere of quiet authority. Thank goodness for my personal savings account that Vincent never knew about. It had given me the resources to hire the best. I reviewed documents in the conference room while waiting for the others to arrive. Right on schedule, Vincent entered with his lawyer, followed by Olivia and Robert. Penny trailed behind, attempting confidence but failing visibly. "Mrs. Walsh," Jonathan greeted me with a professional nod. "Shall we begin?" I watched Vincent's expression as Jonathan methodically presented our evidence. He paled noticeably when we displayed our timeline: every suspicious property transfer, every hastily created company, every deliberate attempt to hide money. Olivia clutched his arm when Jonathan mentioned potential criminal charges. "This is nonsense," Vincent's lawyer protested. "These were normal family business decisions." "Were they?" I asked, sliding forward a stack of documents. "Because these records show my name was removed from family business assets exactly 3 months ago, precisely when Vincent began his affair. Quite a coincidence, don't you think?" Robert shifted uncomfortably. He had always been the weakest link, too concerned about his social standing to risk public scandal. "Now," Jonathan continued, "we are prepared to be reasonable. Mrs. Walsh helped build this family's success. She simply wants her fair share." "Fair share," Penny snapped. "She's trying to ruin us." I turned to her, maintaining my composure. "No, Penny, I'm protecting what I helped create." I paused. "Would you like me to play the recording of you and Vincent discussing how to keep the gold digger from getting anything?" Her face went white. Vincent's head snapped up. "You recorded us?" "No," I replied calmly. "Your mistress did. Rachel was quite helpful once I showed her proof that you were planning to discard her too. She started recording your conversations on her phone weeks ago." The room erupted. Olivia dissolved into tears. Robert demanded to speak with his personal lawyer. Penny screamed about betrayal. Through it all, I sat quietly, watching my husband realize how thoroughly he'd been outplayed. "Here's what's going to happen," Jonathan spoke over the chaos, his voice commanding immediate silence. "We have documented evidence of attempted fraud. We can pursue this criminally, or we can reach a reasonable settlement today. Your choice." Vincent's lawyer requested a moment with his client. As they huddled in the corner, I could see the fight draining from Vincent's body. He'd always been arrogant, convinced of his own cleverness, but now he looked hollowed out. "We'll agree to fair terms," his lawyer finally announced. "Excellent," Jonathan smiled. "Mrs. Walsh has already outlined her requirements." He distributed copies of my settlement proposal. I'd been thorough but not vindictive. I wanted what I'd helped build, nothing more. "This is outrageous," Olivia exclaimed, but Robert placed a restraining hand on her arm. "Sign it, Vincent," he said quietly. "We can't risk this getting out." As Vincent picked up the pen, Penny made one last desperate attempt. "Wait, those photos, they were in public places." She was flaunting these meetings. I couldn't help but laugh softly. "Of course they were public. I wanted you to see them. Every lunch, every coffee meeting, I knew you were having me followed. I just made sure your investigator captured exactly what I wanted you to see." The realization that they'd been played at their own game finally silenced them. One by one, the documents were signed. As Jonathan gathered the paperwork, I stood to leave. "Catherine," Vincent called, his voice strange. "When did you get so calculating?" I paused at the door. "I learned from the best, didn't I? Family taught me." The irony wasn't lost on anyone in the room. As I walked out of the office, I felt lighter than I had in months. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just about winning. It's about showing them they underestimated you all along. Outside, the autumn air felt crisp and clean. My phone buzzed with a message from Rachel. "It's done. Thank you for showing me the truth about him." She'd been surprisingly receptive when I approached her at her workplace last month, evidence in hand. I smiled, remembering how easily Vincent's mistress had become my ally once I showed her proof of his pattern, his promises to her, his plans to discard her just like me after securing his wealth. Sometimes the strongest alliances come from unexpected places. Driving home, I thought about family, not the one that had betrayed me, but the one I would build for myself now, on my own terms. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, sipping coffee and watching the city awaken. Morning sunlight cast long shadows across my newly furnished living room, highlighting the fresh start I'd created. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel of all people. We'd maintained an unlikely friendship after everything. "You won't believe who I just saw at Riverside Cafe. Penny." She actually tried to pretend she didn't see me. I smiled, remembering how thoroughly the family had unraveled after our meeting. Their carefully constructed facade of perfect family business had cracked under the weight of their own schemes. Robert had retired early, claiming health issues, but everyone knew it was to avoid the whispers at his precious country club. Olivia had thrown herself into charity work, desperately trying to maintain their social standing. Penny perhaps had faced the harshest reality check. Her role in the attempted fraud had cost her position in the family company. Last I'd heard, she was working as a junior accountant at a small firm, a significant step down from her former executive title. My phone rang. "Jonathan Murray." "Catherine," he greeted warmly. "Just wanted to let you know the last of the transfers are complete. Everything's officially settled." "Thank you, Jonathan, for everything. You know," he said thoughtfully, "in all my years practicing law, I've never seen someone handle betrayal with such strategic precision. Have you ever considered a career change?" I laughed, but his words resonated. In outmaneuvering Vincent and his family, I'd discovered parts of myself I never knew existed: strength, cunning, and an ability to see several moves ahead. Later that afternoon, I met Sarah, my closest friend, for lunch. She'd been my rock throughout everything, one of the few people who knew the whole story from the beginning. "Have you heard?" she asked, sliding into her seat. "Vincent's been demoted. Apparently, some of his business decisions during the divorce drama didn't sit well with the board." I shook my head. "I'm not surprised. He always did think he was smarter than everyone else." "Speaking of smart," Sarah leaned forward, "how's the new venture going?" After the settlement, I'd used part of my funds to start a consulting firm, helping other women navigate complex divorces and financial disputes. It felt right, using my experience to help others protect themselves. "We're expanding," I said, unable to hide my pride. "Opened a second office last week." "Look at you," Sarah grinned. "From being blindsided by your husband's betrayal to running your own empire. Who would have thought?" I reflected on the woman I'd been a year ago, trusting, naive, willing to believe in family loyalty above all else. That woman was gone, replaced by someone stronger, wiser, but not bitter. If anything, I was grateful for the lessons learned. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Olivia: "I miss you. The family isn't the same without you." I archived it without responding. Some bridges once burned shouldn't be rebuilt. That evening, as I reviewed applications for my firm's mentorship program, I reflected on how life had changed. The family that had tried to destroy me had inadvertently set me free. Their attempts to leave me with nothing had pushed me to become something more than I'd ever imagined. The doorbell rang. Rachel with a bottle of wine. Our monthly catch-up sessions had become a tradition of sorts. "To Karma," she raised her glass, settling onto my couch. "Vincent's dating someone new, by the way. Poor girl has no idea what she's getting into. Should we warn her?" I asked, half joking. Rachel laughed. "Something tells me she'll figure it out on her own. Besides, I hear she's quite clever with computers. Maybe she'll catch on faster than we did." We shared a knowing look. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about moving forward while watching karma do its work. As the sun set over the city, casting an orange glow through my windows, I felt at peace. The family that had tried to write me off as naive had taught me the most valuable lesson of all: never underestimate someone who has nothing left to lose. My new life wasn't built on revenge or bitterness. It was built on wisdom, strength, and the knowledge that sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the best beginnings. I raised my glass to the setting sun, silently thanking them for teaching me exactly who I could become. The story of how my husband's family tried to destroy me had become the catalyst for my greatest transformation. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting better.